Uh,
What is it?
I don't
The bag looks
fucking
white.
white
These nuts.
balance. Okay. Holy
It's definitely Canadian then if it's
Oh,
white.
oh,
Oh, there
oh,
you go.
camera looks perfect now. And we're live and have been for about 4 seconds now. Welcome, guys, to the Waking Up
Hi.
Podcast. It's bangers and mash. We're going to talk about Kurt Cobain today. I don't have that strip club DJ energy. I feel like this is going to get real heavy, and I'm really excited. I want to get really emotional, and I want to talk about all the things because I got to tell you that Kurt Cobain stuff was really heavy. Have you seen that
Yeah.
documentary, Zwitch? Montage of Heck?
No, I haven't.
So
I haven't.
maybe you'll feel like watching it after we talk about it a bit. But you obviously, we were just talking, and you were talking about how you and your friends grew up with Nirvana. Like that was part of your scene.
Yeah, definitely. Like grunge, and like we were just talking about it earlier. Like Nirvana is the centerpiece, basically, but also what like Melvins that came before it, and what kind of strong Nirvana, and the Foo Fighters, obviously, that are still going strong, and like that whole vibe that the music had to it. Obviously, my friends that had something traumatic to happening to them, and they kind of bonded over it, and I was just running with it, and it was beautiful.
So the drummer of the Melvins was the drummer for Nirvana before Dave Grohl came along, is what my understanding was, and Kurt was a big fan of the Melvins.
Yeah, they basically they basically looked after him for a lot of years when he had nowhere to stay. He lived at Dale Crover's the guy you're talking about, who's the drummer for the Melvins, or became the final drummer for the Melvins. And Kurt lived at his house for a long time. I mean, the first ever songs that Kurt recorded, Dale Crover played drums on it, which was the Fecal Matter tape.
No, right.
And yeah, like they practically looked after him. He was technically their roadie for a while, but he didn't last long because he couldn't lift any of the amps, because he was so fucking skinny.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Melvins, Buzz Osborne being, the kind of mastermind behind the band, like they're a big fucking deal, especially in the whole Seattle scene, for sure. And for Kurt as well. Yeah.
I didn't know he was from Seattle. I had no idea he was in Washington. And I was thinking yesterday, I'm like, it'd be really cool to just drive across the border, well, when we're allowed to, and go check out Aberdeen and go to Olympia and drive around and see the university. Because he played at high school or the college. There was a college there that he played at, right?
Yeah, he lived there with his girlfriend
Tracy.
Yeah, and so Aberdeen's where he's born, Olympia's where he stayed for a while, but they never really, I don't think they ever really went to Washington that much. It was more like once they were big,
Yeah.
because Aberdeen's quite far away from what I understand.
So, like,
But
he has this crazy story where he grew up and his childhood was he always got attention. The family was always around, always wanted to be around him, always loved him, gave him attention, all the presents, the birthdays, all that kind of stuff. And, like, the thing that I noticed was as he got older, and, we're always trying to recreate our childhoods because that's what's familiar to us. And he could never recreate that again because fans don't love you like your family does. You know what I mean? And I think there was always going to be a lack, even aside from the heroin problem, even aside from all the other shit that he had going on. There was always going to be a deficit with the kind of attention that he got because it would never amount to how he got attention as a child. He was magnetic from a young age. Everybody wanted to be around him. That's how his mom described it. And yeah, I think that was part of the reason it was never going to be enough. And then I didn't know this either, but he was prescribed Ritalin at the age of 7, which is a huge problem today. Like all these young kids who have too much energy, they're too boisterous, they're too excitable, they're too this, being prescribed all these medications to help them focus their energy when their brains are in the nascent stages of development still, It's so crazy. So is it a surprise that he had mental issues? Not at all. And then they gave him medication to counteract the insomnia effects that he was getting from the Ritalin because he had too much energy already, and then they're giving him Ritalin.
Yeah, and also as well that sorry, go. I was going to say that teaches you that if you put a drug in your system, something happens to you. And if you go through that with your life, and you know that drugs can change, you know, change who you are, change how you feel, then you're going to look for that wherever you can find it.
Especially
Go on,
with
Zwitch.
Ritalin and the story with Kurt Cobain, that he was given it at such a young age, and that was special for that age. Like nowadays, it's not special to
It's
give a
commonplace.
7-year-old already, and they are not diagnosed with ADHD, not properly. You didn't get, you got a doctor to tell you that, yeah, it's ADHD, and just give you Ritalin and it works because it actually behaves better. But that's a drug. Exactly. It influences the system. But when it's not ADHD, it's also like there are studies out there that prove that it leads to a long time addiction, if not to the worst case in that case too.
Yeah. I just, back then we didn't particularly have maybe the knowledge to administer those drugs. It's kind of weird now that we have so much information about brain development and all these things, and they prescribe these medications as a matter of course. And I mean, it has to do with a lot of poor incentives and all these things, and I don't want to get into that, but I just can't imagine. Like, so that happened, and then his parents divorced, and like being in a situation where your family is very cohesive, everybody's together, everybody's around all the time, you're in a very loving, nurturing kind of environment, and then you go from that to your parents are now splitting up. His mom and dad's divorce really fucked him up. He never felt, you could tell, like from there, he never felt the same again. He always felt displaced and lost and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even, you look at all that footage of him when he's a child, even when the family, when his mum and dad were still together, when his sister was born, you see a huge change in his behavior just in that Super 8 footage at the start of the film.
Yeah.
When his sister was born and he was in the center of attention, he's like scowling. He's like trying to make everyone look at him.
Yeah.
And like I've known kids of divorce, and they are like that. They want all eyes on them. But I think Kurt was kind of like that anyway.
Yeah, but that's,
You know what I mean?
but again, that was facilitated by his family always being around. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
they were always around him. Everybody was grabbing him and always wanted to pick him up and always wanted to do this. And all of a sudden now there's another baby and the attention is split up and he's not happy. So he's acting, it seems like that's when the acting out started happening. And he couldn't handle that. Like, his father started giving him some shit about the way that he was behaving, and he always felt really humiliated. Like, that's a common or a constant theme throughout the thing, is that he just could not stand being humiliated. And I think that must have started with his father, because his father was kind of rough to him. Although a lot of people said, his grandfather and other people around in interviews, that him and his father had a really good relationship. You just never really know what it was like when they were together.
I feel I see it in my daughter and the talks that we have now that she's almost 7. Like, it gets real sometimes. One of her biggest fears is whenever we have an argument or something, she really has that fear that we could split up, because she knows that other parents sometimes split up, and that's a common thing. So children have a feeling for that, even at that young age, for maybe it's, and they obviously try to connect it to them. Like, am I the reason? Am I connected to this? Am I causing this somehow? Do they fight over me? And that's usually what leads to a divorce, the fights, the stuff. So this fear that then becomes real is obviously also, like, not just the trauma of the divorce, the splitting up and whatever. Is even before that, like when he acted up, when this was about to happen, like things weren't going well, always trying to, relate it to themselves, like how what do I have to do in this?
Well,
Yeah.
like as
Well,
a kid, you see your parents have so much joy because of you. So you probably see your parents be upset and also say, "Oh, their sadness is because of me too." Like there has to be some weird sort of dynamic there that causes that kind of thought.
yeah.
Especially when they're always around you.
Yeah.
Well, when you're a kid, you can't help but feel like the center of attention. You don't understand, like you're only really aware of your own pain and you know what I mean, other than your immediate family. You're so myopic as a child, like you can't help but think everything's your fault. Like that's just what happens.
Yeah.
It's the way your psychology works at that point. 'Cause you can only figure yourself out through how other people in your environment's reacting towards what you do. You know what I mean?
It
Yeah.
is crazy to see his timeline progress, Kurt's timeline, just because you see the videos of him being such a happy baby, like blowing kisses to the camera. He's so cute. And then you see like the last few years of him getting kind of thin, and he's with Courtney Love a lot. And they're kind of like self-professed junkies. They never hid the fact that they did shit and they were always on drugs, and that Cobain's drug of choice was heroin. His friend Chris, the bass guitarist or the guitarist of the band, bass guitarist,
Yeah, bass player.
bass
Yeah,
player.
Chris.
So he was like, we got famous too fast. Like the fame came too fast, and I dealt with it. I had wine and I had beer. Kurt had heroin. Because I don't think that that's healthy. Like there's a level of attention that I don't think anybody's mind was evolved to deal with, because we've evolved from small tribes, and now we're in this fucking zone where overnight you can just become a sensation like that. And Nirvana's fame happened quick, right? It was like such a slow grind, and then bam, all of a sudden, who the fuck are these punk kids? What is this band? Who is this fucking kid? And like the talent in this guy, the voice in this guy, the lyrics with this guy, everything with this guy was just like so on point, but he was so fucked up. Like, it's fucking nuts.
Well, another thing as well, like because he was on, they were signed to Sub Pop before they went to Geffen Records, which Geffen Records are the ones who released Nevermind. And Jonathan Poneman and I can't remember the other guy's name who owns Sub Pop. They treated him like shit. Like they asked him, when they paid for him to record the album Bleach, which was the first album, and then they rang him up and asked him for money to actually print the albums. Like they just treated him like shit all the time. They didn't give him any, like they put all their money into like Green River and Mudhoney and all these other bands that were on the record label, and they didn't give a shit about Nirvana. And then as soon as the big labels came knocking, all of a sudden, oh well, if you look at the back of Nevermind, it says Sub Pop on the back. And as soon as the big labels come knocking, it was like, well, we want to have a stake in the deal. Like we're interested in Nirvana now. Like we're gonna pay for this, we're gonna pay for that. You know what I mean? Like he was treated like shit by the majority of people, like his whole life. I mean, there's the heartbreaking stories of like how he would go, and when he had nowhere to go, he had no friends to stay at, or he couldn't, he had nowhere to stay. He would go to hospitals.
Yeah, and just hang out in the waiting rooms because he knew he could get coffee and stuff.
Well, he knew people wouldn't bother him because they think, oh, he's waiting for like a relative who's sick or something.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty fucking heartbreaking. Like, and I mean, as much as I think the whole narrative of he's lived under a bridge for years, I think that's bullshit. Because if you listen to Buzz from the Melvins, he's like, no, maybe slept there like once or twice, or he would like be under there quite a lot.
Yeah, he smoked weed there.
Yeah, like it was like any teenager has a place that, I mean, I used to hang out in a graveyard when I wasn't doing other things, because it was quiet and nobody was there.
Yeah.
It's everyone has a place like that, but it gets, you know what it's like with these things, it's like the mythos of this stuff, it just gets carried away, because everybody wants to be able to tell a story about Kurt Cobain. Like with these things,
It's like telephone. You know what I mean? Like that game telephone they teach us when we're kids.
Yeah.
People always take one story, and by the time it gets to the end of the circle, it's been warped and changed and totally added. And this is the ability people have to warp each other's realities by telling lies or like adding some sort of spice on top of something or whatever. It entirely changes what the main thing was. Because I was watching that documentary this morning. What was it?
the early life.
Yeah, the early life of Kurt Cobain. And like that's where the Melvins guy was saying he didn't fucking live under a bridge. Like that
Yeah,
didn't
like they
happen.
knew him. And, yeah. And I mean, like, even when I remember the first time I watched Montage of Heck, I went to see it in this little like indie cinema in Liverpool in the city. And do you remember that scene, Amy, when his mother's talking about how he brought the master tape home
Yeah.
for Nevermind, and she was like, "You better buckle up because
Yeah,
you're not
ready for
that."
this.
Straight away though, I knew that like that's bullshit. Like you can tell in her demeanor that never happened. And then also the fact is he was living in his car when the
Yeah.
album was released. When the album went platinum, he was living in his car. So I don't think that even happened. I think she's lying about that. And I'm as old as his daughter. I've never known any of these people, so I could be talking out my ass, but it just seems really weird the way she says it. It doesn't seem honest. Her eyes are darting around.
Yeah,
And
it didn't
if you
seem
look-
like it either because it just seemed way too. It just seemed like it was something that they added to make it more salacious and juicy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's his
Like a
mom,
line
but
from
it's his mom saying it though, so we gotta believe it because why?
Yeah, it's like a line from a movie or something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
a scene.
Hollywood production.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I thought anyway.
So I think I was just I'm just gonna pull you in here, Zwitchi, because if you don't mind, we were just talking about a story about your friend, and like his trajectory was pretty much the same. Like you were telling me the story, and I was like, this sounds like Kurt Cobain, of like plays music, musical genius, heroin, chasing the dragon.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it also came from a deep trauma. He lost his mother in a car accident when he was 6. And basically, up until this moment, he only got to know his father as this violent alcoholic that tried to break in the mother's apartment and stuff and succeeded
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And then he got taken in by his father and grew up with him in and out of boarding schools. I got to know him when he just got kicked out of a boarding school again. And then he attended our school, which was a public school, but it was a musical school. So everyone played an instrument. He played also piano, great pianist. Very small hands, but very great technique. And his father, also a musician, like by trade, studied in Hungary and studied with Hungarian professors. And, Bela Bartok, for example. So for real, very great, but the struggle didn't really work out. Like Mozart and all that, in all good, but we played Nirvana songs. That's what we bonded over. Like he showed me, I didn't even know of. I heard maybe 1 or 2 songs, but he showed me Bleach. He showed me the whole, sorry,
It's okay.
the whole Nevermind. And then we try to recreate these songs, try to sing them in 2 voices. And then our other friend that played drums, we played those songs together. I learned to play bass, and obviously, it's not that easy, and you get bleedy fingertips and all that, but it's so beautiful. And we took drugs together. We smoked heroin together. At some point, one of our friends got his hands on it. He even got addicted to it and managed to jump off, and now has a beautiful life, just became father. My other friend though, always going for parties, always, that life that we
Yeah.
had as 15, 16-year-olds, drinking, smoking weed, or whatever he could get his hands on. So in the end, that's what happened. Like,
It just
what
killed
do you
him at
call
the
it?
end.
Yeah, like one Christmas Eve, the friends were gone. There was still heroin. There was still cocaine. It was a party, and I can just picture it going like every morning, whenever is there some beer? Is there something? Is there? Oh, nice, and this and quick, and before Christmas Eve was about, he was dead
Yeah, that's fucked, man. That's so crazy.
very quickly.
Now all I think of is like
Quickly
that
burning
last
candle.
line in that documentary. It's always better to burn out than to fade away. Right? That's
Yeah.
like the attitude that was there.
So
That's
Neil,
exactly what he was. Yeah.
it's a Neil Young lyric that.
Oh, is it?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, learn something every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
it kind of makes sense why him, like, whatever your opinion on Courtney Love is, Courtney Love had the same kind of childhood. Like her father was the manager of the Grateful Dead, and the Grateful Dead are like hippie acid band, and there's a story that either him, basically she ended up taking acid by accident when she was like hanging around the band when she was like 6-7 years old.
Mm.
And then like she went to different like boarding schools and youth centers and had nowhere to live, bounced around, and then like her grandmother died or something and she got a huge trust fund and she used that to like travel around the world and basically be like a groupie for all kinds of musicians. Like she was the same. She just had a wider span of where she could travel. KURDT was stuck in Aberdeen and Washington State. She traveled all over Europe. I mean, she lived in Liverpool for a while in the 80s when all the new wave stuff was happening. So they were both like lost kids, and they grew up in kind of similar circumstances. So it makes a lot of sense why they kind of got on like house on fire, even though they bent down inside it in a lot of ways.
Well, they fueled each other's bad habits through the fact that they got along so well. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much I believe she killed him. Like, I know that's like something that's floating around out there. I know a lot of the people who are interviewed are like, I can't see him killing himself. I can't see him killing himself. But I can. If you watch the documentaries and like, he talked about it, he wrote about it. Look at his drawings. He had nightmares all the time. He had gut issues. Like he had such bad gut issues he would puke every time before he got on stage. He was throwing up blood. He was not always healthy. And then the heroin came in and all the other stuff. He was inhaling solvents. He was doing so many fucking drugs and putting his body through so much. Because like you want to numb out at some point. In that letter he wrote last, he's writing about how like the last few years of making music did nothing for him. Like he just felt nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like if you've ever known people with like bad drug habits, they always have something like that.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I hurt my knee when I like on a building site, so that's why I do it. That's why I
do that though. Yeah.
Like they always have this story, and like Buzz Osborne said, like the stomach issue thing was bullshit. Now I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
I mean, and like, I used to have stomach issues to the point where I would pass out because it was so painful. Like, and then I got my diet in check, blah, 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 and I got better. Like, I don't think, maybe he didn't have the chance to get it in check because he was like a touring musician with no money for the longest time and it did too much damage. But I don't know. I think, you see, it is hard because you see that it's hard to tell because you see footage of him when Francis was born in interviews and he seems like a lot healthier. He's put on a bit of weight. He's doing better. But then you see that footage of him when she's getting a haircut.
Oh my God, and he's nodding
like,
out and shit.
Yeah, like then you realize, okay, this was a back and forth thing,
Yeah.
And if anyone's going to end up killing themselves, it's someone with a drug habit that bad, especially when you've got the cash on hand to fund that kind of lifestyle. Like he used to buy a hotel, like, well, a really shitty motel, in Seattle and just lock himself in there for weeks and just do heroin for like weeks straight. He had a legit problem. So I don't know, but if you look at the timeline of him dying, there are some fishy things. That's as much as I'll say. But I came to the conclusion I think he did kill himself. Or worst case scenario, there was a drug deal that went bad some junkie fucking killed him or killed him by accident or whatever the fuck. I mean, he had a lot of dodgy people like Dylan Carlson around him and stuff
that?
who were druggies. He was like, he got to know him when he was like, there's this guy from Seattle, and he got to know him. First met him at like the first ever gig he did. He did this concert with Dale and Buzz from the Melvins, and they like called themselves Brown Towel. After, like, doesn't matter what it's after, but they had this like joke band and they played a gig, and he met Dylan Carlson there, so he's known him like all his life. But he was this like junkie musician, never really made it, like kind of like a hanger on. And you learn about all the characters that were around him at the time of his death, and there's so many hangers on. It's like, it's a perfect recipe for something to go wrong. That's what I think. In terms of a death, not necessarily a suicide.
The thing with the heroin addiction, and also connecting to, well, his painful stomach. In the end, that's what happens. Like, didn't he start on pain pills first, and then heroin was just, you know, the next level because it's just the most effective opiate you can get your hands on. So that's what it is, basically. It first starts to fuck with your bowel movements, like any opiate does. And if you take it over a long time, that's always what happens. And that's what causes all the, you know, getting skinny, getting not eating at
Depression.
all because it just hurts. And that opiate, that warm blanket, ultimately any opiate does that, but heroin, of course, it's immediately, if that warm blanket, that family, that, you know, that being hugged by your whole family at once, your whole family at once, that's what heroin does. And that was he was chasing, I would say. And so that connected to constant pain, and the only way out is that going back and chasing that. Obviously, that's a vicious circle.
Yeah, and then
not having any tools, then yeah, the, what was it, like the enabling factor, yeah, of Courtney and all the other guys that always were like, yeah, just also leave something for me, but do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, there's like the thing that struck me the most out of this. I don't know why he would lie about the gut issues, because it was, I mean, it was said that he puked and stuff, and he would cough blood and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that was bullshit personally. He definitely had some issue. Gut issues are also known to be highly correlated with depression and a lot of psychological mental mood issues, because that's where your serotonin is produced, right? That's why you need to have a healthy gut bacteria. That's why your diet matters.
Ritalin since 7 also means probably until he died, he never had a healthy gut environment anymore. Like any medication you take, all the byproducts, like just if it's just, what is it? Magnesia, calcium, whatever it's made of, you know, all the bullshit, it fucks with your whole chemistry in your stomach. So that's where it probably started, but whatever it became, it doesn't get better with taking pain pills.
No.
Heroin? Not really.
Not
I mean,
at all.
the pain goes away for a bit.
Well, the only thing I would say about that is because his girlfriend Tracy at the time said, you know, oh, you would get out the car and say, oh, I need to throw up. Well, apparently he was doing heroin at the time and wasn't telling her.
Yeah, that's
so that could have been him inducing that stomach issue, and then she thinks, oh, he's got this like normal kind of IBS or some kind of fucked up
but it's a feedback loop, right? Because the medication still fucks with your chemistry and everything, and it was still fucked from before because he was on that Ritalin as a child, and then even more fucked because, like I said earlier, in combination with the Ritalin, he was prescribed a medication to counter the insomnia effects of the Ritalin. So his gut was being bombarded from a very young age with all this really intense medication, also fucking with your psyche from a developing, like from being a developing
fucking
child.
with your sleep.
Yeah.
Well, he befriended a drug dealer when he was like 15, 16, and that guy used to give him like just like one kind of opiate, some kind of pain pill. He used to just give him like one every now and then when he would see him. So even from then, he was doing opiates. He just didn't know what they were, and he would go through withdrawal, and he would be like, "What's wrong with me?" Because he didn't know what withdrawal was. He didn't know what opiates could do to you, how you become dependent on them. So he had that shit in his system his whole life, you know. And he used to go on like graffiti raids with like Buzz Osborne and a couple of other guys, and they would be doing acid and shit, going around spraying shit at like, you know, ridiculously young ages. So the guy was on some kind of substance for pretty much his entire life. Yeah.
And then
It's
he
not
had
gonna help his stomach.
nightmares, and he had all this. I mean, obviously, look at the fucking drawings, man. His art is beautiful, but also it's so much of it is such horror. Like, it's so fucked up and weird to look at, and it's like, and the things he wrote and the way he expressed himself, like you could tell there was so much anger and just resentment, right? Like they were flipping through these pages, and he had like angry Kurt, lonely Kurt, resentful Kurt, right? Like all his moods and stuff, and most of them were negative. You know, he felt very negatively, and then came into play like they got famous, and he hated the industry. He hated the fucking signing autograph shit. He hated interviews. He hated everything about that except for just playing the music. And I think that fucked him up too. Like, again, like it just wasn't, it didn't satiate him to get that amount of attention, because I don't think that kind of attention is artificial. You know what I mean? It's not the same attention you get from a loving family who is supportive and cares for you and wants to be around you. It's just not the same, and it'll never compensate.
Yeah, well, he likened it to being like the school slut. You know, you're getting all this attention, but it's for something that you don't really want. You know what I mean? It's attention for who you are, but you may not really want that attention. You know, it's got to be rough. I mean, and also like all his kind of idealistic attitudes towards music, and you know, he felt like he was betraying that in a lot of ways, which I think is silly. I think he came to terms with that in a lot of ways, though. People like to think he never did, but I think he did in a lot of ways from reading a lot of the stuff I've read in a lot of interviews, for sure. But I mean, even the stomach issue, like by like 92, 93, there are a lot of interviews where he says it's practically gone now. Like he never gets it anymore, and that might be because he was on the heroin, but you never know. You never know.
That Tracy, man. Tracy was such a saint. I was like, if there's anyone I relate to in this documentary, it's fucking Tracy, because I would keep a guy in my house who was like taking care of everything and had this weird artsy thing about him, and go work and do everything while he did whatever he needed to do, because, you know, like she saw so much in him. He would be painting, he would be taking care of the animals, he would be cleaning and taking care of the house or whatever, and then eventually that started to decline, and I think that's when he started taking heroin while he was living with her. And it was his first actual girlfriend too, and he moved away, and like that's pretty much a lot of people will say that Tracy is the entire reason that Nirvana was able to become a thing, because she supported him and she took care of him and she was like there for him. You know?
There's a lot of early photos as well from early gigs that she took. Like she did a lot of kind of behind the scenes stuff, and obviously supported them in a lot of ways. For sure, yeah. I mean, have you ever seen live at the Paramount Theatre, which is a Nirvana gig? It's like it's really well shot, and there's like the crowd outside. You actually see Tracy in the crowd outside at that gig. Like she's there. She's even supporting him then. You know what I mean? She seemed like a really good girl, you know.
Yeah. What else was there? That documentary, it was really awesome how they kind of brought his notebook to life, where they would like, it's so cool how they did all the writing, even the scratching out. You know what I mean? Like they did the scratching out after. And I was kind of thinking during that, I was like, I wonder how they knew when he scratched it out. Like, what if it wasn't immediately after he wrote it? He like wrote a bit more and then scratched it out.
Well, they would work backwards from the page, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I guess so.
So you'd have the and then you would just make a guess as because you'd probably cross out the first thing like if it was linear.
I mean, maybe. I don't think he was very linear in general, though. That's why a lot of his stuff was so messy.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he did have big chunks of writing. You have the journal, so when you're ready, we can like get into that and stuff. But like, see, I haven't even really deeply looked into the lyrics, so that's where Zwitch, maybe you can come in because you were saying that you were very compelled by his lyrics and stuff when you were young.
Yeah, I wasn't over analyzing any of its stuff, but just our interpretation of it, or I think that's more of what it was. I was saying that earlier too, that social interaction and going over the lyrics over and over again, and trying to figure out some words, because obviously it's not our first language, so we were learning English too, and you couldn't go to a teacher and ask stuff, like, what are you showing me? So yeah, that's kind of how we work through the lyrics.
Yeah. Well, from what I've heard them talk about lyrics, it was always melody first, words second. So he would find words that fit with it was always about the sound of the words rather than what they were saying. But a lot of his songs, because he would like to downplay it, like, oh, it doesn't really mean anything. But if you listen to like, I mean, Polly, which is like a famous song, that's about a real event. Like this girl actually was kidnapped after a show. I think it was in Tacoma or something. It was in the newspaper. She was kidnapped and like tortured, and the only way she got out of that was to like kind of pretend like she was going through some kind of what's the syndrome called where you're kidnapped and you end up
Imposter? No. Stockholm.
Stockholm, yeah. Like she like pretended like that to the guy, like started coming on to him, being like, well, if you untie me, maybe we can like get dinner sometime, like you're actually quite good looking, blah blah blah. And then when he like let his guard down and let it go, like she ran away. And Kurt read that and was like, what the fuck? And then really like hit him. and then he wrote Polly about that. And then there's another song, I think, Pen Cap Chew, which is about the drug dealer that he knew was gay, and his boyfriend was this guy who was like, when he was a kid, he was abused like in this house, like he was basically locked in this room, and the parents would like push food under the door to the kids, and like everything was blacked out and stuff. So there are a lot of stories and a lot more to his lyrics, but I do think it more about the sound of the words.
I remember, was it Lithium? They wanted to name it Imodium just because, what was it? The story, someone had the shits. It wasn't Kurt. It wasn't Kurt, I think.
Was it Chris?
It was even him. It was even him. I don't remember, but that was Imodium,
Yeah, it's for,
he
yeah.
did. So, he initially wanted to name that song that way, but then he just named it Lithium after, what they gave him too. That's what they did before Ritalin, apparently. Like, they tried lithium too. My friends also got lithium in the boarding school. They put lithium in their water.
What effect does that have?
To calm the kids down, make them more submissive, apparently. Like,
really?
That's what people claimed, at least.
Some people still take it for depression and stuff and anxiety. Yeah, I was I was on citalopram, which is like a SSRI, and they talked about lithium as well to me because apparently it's still used. But I don't know. Like, I had this idea of like, I don't know. I didn't choose that. I chose citalopram. That song I was talking about, by the way, was Paper Cuts, and the lyric I was thinking about is when my feeding time, she pushes food through the door. I crawl towards cracks of light. Sometimes I can't find my way, which is obviously about that. And then there's newspaper spread around, soaking all that they can, and cleaning is due again. A good hosing down. So like the kids are like washed down with like hoses, and they were just not very. But then the kind of biographical thing is in the song is the lady who I feel a maternal love for cannot look me in the eye, but I see hers and they are blue, and they cock and twist and masturbate. And I think that's about his mother, because he's got like blue eyes, and I think obviously
She does.
she kicked him out all the
Yeah.
fucking time. I think that was about his life, and then the first verse was more about this story he had about this kid. Yeah.
That whole thing after his parents split up, where he was like back and forth and he was getting unruly and his mom couldn't deal with him anymore, and then she sent him to the dad, and then the dad one day dropped him back off at his mother's, and like she was with some man, and he also saw his mother get abused. Like that's fucked up too. Like, and he was always described as a very sweet, kind of shy, caring person. Like, see him with his daughter, right? And he's just like, they loved her. They're so cute together. And as crazy as Courtney and Kurt were together, like, I just understand wanting to be with a person like that, because she was interesting. She was so, I don't know, I feel like a weird kinship with her in a way, because she was just like such a comfortable person, very like artsy and very knowledgeable. And I mean, I'm not saying I am, but she was in all those areas, and she was very intellectual and like very interesting. And I mean, after that, like she just represented for him like the peak experience of being with someone you love too. So he just like had all these crazy peak experiences, and like I think they just kind of numbed him out. They numbed him out even more. That's a guess. That's a guess, by the way.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, think about it. Like, the guy went from being this like kind of this person everyone stayed away from in high school. I mean, there's the story about the fat girl in Montage Park, where this girl with learning difficulties, overweight, like him and his friends, well, not his friends, these guys he hung around with, used to like steal alcohol from a house. And then he was thinking about killing himself, so he went to the house to try and have sex with this like overweight kind of like inbred girl.
Retard.
He went, yeah, retard, yeah. And he went, so he goes from that kind of existence, and then he has his first girlfriend, blah blah blah, and then he goes from that to being this like #1 musician with this like attractive girlfriend who seems to adore him. And then he's like gets married. So he goes from like this kind of he's only getting the scraps of what it is to be human, and then he gets the fucking gold. He gets all the fucking cake he can eat, you know what I mean, metaphorically. And then so yeah, that would kind of rinse you out in terms of peak experience, I think.
Yeah.
And then add drugs on that, and playing to hundreds of thousands of people every night, all that adrenaline, like, it'll rinse you out for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That the whole story is just like so insane. But I imagine that after a while, after you perform to that many people, after you do all the drugs, after you have that many peak experiences in a row, that you're really not going to feel anything. Because like the suicide letter said, like there was a few years where the music wasn't doing it for him anymore. It didn't matter what he did. It just wasn't satisfying him anymore. And that's got to be what happens with people who do the heroin, who are constantly chasing the dragon, is like that's the only thing that you can run to now to feel a little bit of that warmth,
Essentially, that's addiction, yeah.
Yeah.
When that's everything, when you only play music so you can afford your addiction eventually, so it doesn't give you anything, it's like a boring office job. That's it. But it's not for your mortgage, it's for your heroin. It's
Yeah.
But the same deal. You feel trapped, but you still need to do it somehow. It's not for survival, but in your mind, it is. Yeah.
You get into this kind. You get painted into a corner psychologically when it comes to addiction, for sure.
It's the same with depression or anything else. Like that's why it's actually a mental health issue rather than anything. And it's so often, like in that case again, suppressed trauma that's not properly dealt with, and in some way or another, especially when you're introduced to drugs that early, and mm, it's a habit to just take something to numb it down or make it right, or
Yeah.
yeah, as you said earlier, yeah.
Yep. What else is there? It is it's a compelling story, but the thing that I found, and I think it's a product of its time too, the thing that you always find people talking about is the fact that he had a drug issue. Addiction is a symptom of something much deeper. That's a mental health issue. He had severe mental health issues, and I think it was so, like, looking at it now, it just seems so obvious, right? You look at his illustrations, you look at the things he wrote, you look at how much anger he had that he obviously didn't process, and it obviously effervesced under the surface because that's not how he was around people. He was always a very, like, kind, shy, kind of antisocial person, you know what I mean? And like to see how much the anger was eating him up inside, you don't really, it doesn't really hit you until you hear about like the story about him dying. Like the news broadcasts from the time that were like, Kurt Cobain has been found with a fucking shotgun wound through his head. That's horrific. Like that gave me the chills. It was so, it's different than when someone's telling you, right? Oh yeah, Kurt Cobain shot himself. You're like, yeah, whatever. But then you look at all the news from the time and you're like, this is so freaky. Like it was such a big deal. And like, you know, you get kind of a sense of what that was like at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
it was a very freaky thing.
Yeah.
But do you where were you when it happened, Switch? Like, do you remember how like? I'm not trying to date you, by the way. Either.
I'm not even sure. I think I even got into Nirvana as Kurt Cobain was already dead.
Yeah.
That might have been the timeline for me, even.
Just
right after the fact. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, because I think Elliott Smith killed himself in like the early 2000s, and I didn't get into him for like years later. So that must be the same kind of situation. But I really feel for all the people that had to live through it, like all his close friends and stuff, because there's the story where Dave Grohl, after Kurt killed himself, he decided to just travel around Europe, and he was in Ireland, and he was driving down this like dirt road in Ireland. You know, like if you've ever been to Ireland, you know what those like long winding country roads are like. It feels like you're in the middle of nowhere, and you are in a lot of ways. And he was driving down this like long country road, and this kid is standing there hitchhiking, and he has a Nirvana shirt on with Kurt's face on. And Dave Grohl said he was like trying to drive to get away from it, and even there in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, he sees Kurt's face, and he's like, I can't get away from this. Like I've got to just, I can't run away anymore. You know what I mean? Like that must have been so difficult. And then Chris knew him pretty much since like after like, I mean, he had already left high school when he got to know Kurt, because he's like a couple of years older than him. But like, imagine knowing someone that long, and you go through all that stuff, and you have like shared trauma, like becoming famous and dealing with all that shit, and then
Remember Stranger Things? At the end of Stranger Things, when Nancy and Jonathan were in the room, and like they were talking about how they have shared trauma, and that's something that like really keeps people together, is like sharing trauma deepens the bonds between people. Like Chris and Kurt were really tight. They were friends from the beginning. Like he was always with him when they started, right? So imagine that. Like he watched his friend, probably pretty much his best friend, like go through all these crazy fucking phases of like just wanting to play music and writing lyrics. And they always talked about how Kurt was so good at writing lyrics. And you know, they had like a brotherhood. They were hella bonded and good friends. Family at that point.
Yeah. Well, a lot of a lot of the songs, more so on in Utero rather than Nevermind, a lot of those songs were actually written of the day of recording. The lyrics were written in like 10-15 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how, like they seem so crafted, and for them to kind of just come out of him while he's listening
But
to
he
the
just
song.
had
maybe,
something. He was just born with something that made him so extraordinary in that way. Like he picked up a guitar very young. He wanted to learn very young. He was very artsy and painting and doing all these fucking weird illustrations and drawings from a very young age. Like this is just something that he couldn't escape if he wanted to. That was just part of his being. You know what I mean? The fabric of Kurt was the fact that he was just this creative genius and always wanted to make shit. He had to express himself. So he found numerous avenues to do that. And it ended up killing him. But at the same time, like, look how much crazy shit that he made. You know? And this was
Yeah.
born of a mental illness too, which is fucking crazy. Like, I think that was his way of kind of dealing with it. Was creating art and making music and doing that kind of stuff. And it's unfortunate the knowledge wasn't around at the time to, you know, indicate
Not give
these
him
things.
Ritalin.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah, no.
sad, man. That's the most fucked up thing about the whole story. I feel like if he didn't take Ritalin when he was 7, things might have been a little different. But I think that was such a huge indicative factor for me. As soon as I heard that he got on Ritalin, and then the divorce happened in combination, and all the angsty teen shit of like not fitting in, never feeling like he belonged, you know, like just overtaken by hormones and like all this shit all at once. It was overwhelming.
Yeah, for me, that was like learning the story of Kurt Cobain, and actually the fact that he got on Ritalin so early was the main factor for me to look into Ritalin and what is it, what does it do, how is it used, how is it meant to be, applied, and how it is applied actually today.
Mm-hmm.
There was this one picture that it was just the USA, but you saw it like how the wave swept over the whole country, over, I think it was just the timeline of when it was first prescribed on the in the New York area, basically, and then how it swept across the country and reached a year later or 2 years later, it reached California, where they started prescribing it to children more and more. And that was just when in the 90s. So after, they could have known better. Interesting.
So it was in the early 80s or in the 80s when he was prescribed that Ritalin, because he was born, no, 70s? Because he was born in 67, right? Yeah, so it would be
But in the
77, 74, sorry, 74 or so.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so crazy to think that he was only a few years younger than my mom. You know, like he would be like my parents' age right now. But that's not how I know him. I know him because, well, his life ended at 27. So all you know him up to is 27. And now I'm older than him. And it's just so strange to look at and be like, oh, well, he could have been my parent, you know? It's so weird. Like my parents' age, that's what I mean, sorry. Not he could have been my parent, obviously, he couldn't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was telling you earlier, like, well, I think I said it before as well, like his daughter's the same age as me, so I think she's like maybe like 4 or 5 months older than me. So it's kind of crazy. And then, you know, every time like when I turned like 20 or 21, you know, Nevermind had like I think it was like a 20-year anniversary or something like this. And every time there's always like anniversaries to do with Nirvana in line with like when I hit certain landmarks in my life when it comes to age and stuff. And it's kind of strange. I mean, it's kind of wishful thinking in a lot of ways for me, but yeah, for sure. It's when you put it in a timeline, you put it in perspective for yourself. Yeah, it does have a different impact for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think about being 27 years old, and like I think about now, like I personally don't like the idea of fame. Like I just don't feel like I don't feel like that's a psychologically healthy thing. People who stay healthy, like I always use Trent Reznor as an example, they kind of hide away and they do their thing and they understand like you have to have a healthy relationship with the amount of attention that you're going to get. Because if you don't, it really ends up fucking with you. It totally destroys you in a way that I think nothing else can. We're not built to have attention from that many people. You know, we're just not. It's so fucked up. And look how people react to it. They do crazy shit because if you're getting that much, how can you get more? We always want more. So it's good to have things to look forward to, especially when it comes to attention or whatever. You want to have that stuff sparingly, because if you don't, then you have unrealistic expectations and you start expecting, without any conscious idea of the expectation, that level of attention. That's what chasing the dragon is. It's not always heroin. You know what I mean? That concept exists across the board in a lot of psychological dimensions, is when you get something that you like, that your brain gets a reward from, it then wants that thing again in a higher dose. It then wants that thing again in a higher dose, because with every time you're rewarded by something, there's diminishing returns. And when there's diminishing returns, that means you need more of it. And that's why it works like that with drugs or with any other thing, is that you need more of it to get the same effect. That's why you have to have variety in the things that you get reward from. Otherwise, you're just going to end up getting caught up in this really fucked up game where you're continuously trying to achieve the same level of reward feeling or dopamine surge or whatever. That
You were talking about that, about Dunbar's number the other day.
Dunbar's number, yeah.
And if it would increase, it doesn't.
No.
And that's the key. In KURDT's case, he didn't have many relationships at all anyway, and his weren't the ones that, you know, he was longing for, because he lost that when his parents divorced apparently. And chasing that, fans aren't relationships.
Yeah.
Not even, you can have more friends than 150, but those aren't relationships that you can maintain, and you don't.
No.
It's like Facebook friends.
It gets
It's
impossible.
ultimately like fans. Like it's a relationship, but nothing personal.
All that social media shit though is very artificial. You know what I mean? Like it's the illusion of relationship. It's the illusion of connection. That's what social media
and it's
is.
a chase of a higher number
Yes.
of likes, of friends, of stupid
Again,
hearts.
something you have to fucking have a healthy relationship with, because if you don't, it will just fuck you up, dude. And that's why all these kids are growing up with all these major problems, and they have to do crazier and crazier shit to get attention. Every kid wants the viral video. Every kid wants to be famous. I want to be a YouTube star. I want to be this. And then you see what it does to people who are actually extremely talented and worth that amount of attention. It fucks them up. It's not good. You know, it gives you very weird ideas of who you are as a person, because it takes away the idea that you are just a flawed human being too, because then it becomes about image. Now we just got to facilitate whatever is going to continue to make everybody believe in this image that I'm trying to create. That's one thing I liked about the documentary, or with Kurt, or with like older like artists back in the day. There wasn't this social media shit. Imagine what his life would have been like if social media was around. Like, what would Kurt be like if social media was around? Having to see everybody's feedback. He used to get fucking nuts over the fact that, like, Vanity Fair wrote this fucking, you know, article about him, about how Courtney was still on heroin while she was pregnant and all this kind of stuff. And, like, other things, you know, people were saying shit about, like,
that's
fuck
where I
Courtney.
completely agree with you. Yeah. He was appalled by art being a market.
Yeah.
Like every artist is in their mind. At some point they compromise. They have to on some level. But exactly that. He compromised with heroin, so it might not be the best compromise. But you know what I mean? It's exactly that. It can't be a market. It can't be. You are creative. You're putting it out there. People like it. Why do you? What is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I think that the fact that like, if you want to just be some, if you create a product, at the end of the day, if you're making music, you're creating a product, and the demand for it will either go up or down depending on a lot of different factors. But if you make something that people want, and they're going to give you money for it, they're willing to give you money and time and effort for it, whether it's being a fan in terms of support or actually giving money in terms of financial support. I think to not come to terms with that is like quite naive, in my opinion. I think KURDT had very unrealistic ideals in that when it came to that. I think that this whole kind of like almost this like underground guilt that he had, like, because he came from the underground music scene, and a lot of his heroes from the underground music scene, I think he felt like he was like kind of abandoning them in a lot of ways. And it's like, it's silly because it's like all these bands like Black Flag and like, you know, all the way down to like Minor Threat, you know, Bad Brains, all these bands that he grew up on, just him wearing a band t-shirt of somebody he grew up listening to would put money in that artist's pocket. You know what I mean? So they weren't having to like tour as much, or they weren't gonna like have to go a week without food until the next gig or whatever. Like, that's all good. Like, I think this whole kind of like, fuck you, man, we're not for the mainstream. It's like, yeah, you may not be for the mainstream and the mechanisms, but if you can take it over and benefit from it, what's better than that? You know what I mean?
But again, unhealthy relationships. His relationship with all of that was unhealthy to begin with. And he didn't really care to be... It didn't seem like he really cared about money that much. You know what I mean? Like, anytime they were interviewed about it, they're like, yeah, well, money... It's not like it really made us happy. Money can't really buy you happiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the guy still shopped in secondhand shops when he was living in like a mansion in Seattle. It wasn't that he was doing it because he thought it was cool. It was just how he lived. You know what I mean? I don't think it was ever to be cool. It was how he'd lived for so long, so it was hard to get out of that pattern.
I think it's still connected to that idea of betrayal and you know, that you can't
Selling
of course
out.
it's nice to have money and to have a house and not live under the bridge and be on heroin since you're 7, but you know, he never wanted that, and he wanted to distance himself from that, and he couldn't. Like, never. With the fame, that's exactly what came with it, and that's where he rebelled against it, and that's the huge conflict as well. Yeah, on top of the other conflicts.
Yeah, he was just I think he was just a really internally volatile person. Like, he was so much chaos. And his trying to express that via art was just his way of like trying to find order. And it just became unsustainable for him. He wasn't happy. I don't think he was ever going to be. Like I said, I think his problem started as soon as that Ritalin shit happened. And once I heard about that, I'm like, well, of course this guy was fucked up. Of course. You're going to start a child off with like such an intense medication. Like, that's why all these kids now have problems. You know what I mean? And he wrote like some really crazy stories. We should open the journal. Let's open the notebook and talk about some of his notebook. You ready to fix that camera angle?
All right, well, I'll turn my camera off while I get everything sorted.
All right, cool.
Because it'll just be like...
We'll just talk. It's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Oh, yeah.
You can do that. It's no big deal.
Yeah, there's gonna be crazy insults nevertheless.
He really likes to call me a cunt, and I think this is how we sort our marital problems.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you just take the insults. Like, yeah.
She takes it like a champ.
To a certain degree, I have. He makes a point. I can be kind of cunty.
Like God intended. Or the gods, or the goddesses, or whoever.
Whatever. So I wanted to, Zwitch, I was talking to you before about that crazy story that your friend, like both your friends that you had recently passed away. It's really interesting to talk about death. You said you had an early experience with it. You know, I'm where you are. I feel like I process it pretty well at this point. It's not something that really affects me in a sense that, oh no, somebody's died, what am I gonna do, like my life is over. But it affects me in the sense that of like, oh, it's so crazy to think that 1 minute someone's here and 1 minute somebody's not, and that affects me because that's all of our lives. Do you feel like you're
Yeah.
afraid to die?
No, no,
Yeah, I don't either.
I don't think so.
I just feel like it's going to happen when it happens, and until then you just gotta have fun, you know, like as much as you can make the most of whatever your situation is, you have to do that, because being afraid
Yeah.
to die and not having a relationship with the fact that your friends and your family will die, I feel like it kind of takes away how much you can really appreciate someone's life. Understand that it can end at any point, just like yours, and that's why you should
Yeah.
appreciate. Death is
Yeah,
important.
it's the tomorrow thought. Like, yeah, exactly. I'm gonna do this tomorrow. Mm-hmm.
And we're so used to it, right?
Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Survival has become so easy for us. You know, we don't have to scramble to eat. We don't have to scramble to live or be sheltered from the rain or from the elements anymore. And we used to be able to.
Well, we
used to
don't
need to.
even have to fear death anymore. And that's also beautiful because that's, ultimately, that's what everyone was afraid of. Because most of the times when you saw somebody dying, it wasn't like, hallelujah. It was more like painful, weeks, months, years. So, and that was just the good old days. Like even now, it's people are on ventilators, people are in a coma for, and then you have to declare them brain dead at some point because it doesn't make any sense, or in the US case, the family runs out of money.
Oh, that's
It's
so awful.
it's horrible. Nobody wants to have that. And that's where we connect back to heroin. I'm looking forward to die. I get free heroin and then I'm just gonna go.
Yeah.
I'll feel wonderful when I go. Hopefully.
I had this
it could also be
crazy
like,
I had this crazy suicide plan, right? So I'm not interested to try heroin. I have an addictive personality, and I feel like if I get that feeling, it might be something that I really enjoy. Now, if by the age of like 55, 60 years old, if it hurts to live, if it hurts, if my body hurts,
60? Are you crazy?
I'm just saying. I'm not saying it will be
Okay.
60. It could be 70, it could be 75. Who the fuck knows, right? What I'm saying is that 60 is, I think, the earliest that I might start feeling my body hurting and like all that kind of shit, right? If I'm at a point where I don't think that I can live my life the way that I want to because I'm constantly mired by pain and I decide I don't want to do it anymore, I'm not afraid of the idea of committing suicide. But the way that I want to do it is I'll inject heroin and I'll do mushroom and acid and MDMA all at once. Because what a way to go out. Just hit me with all of it. Hit me with all of it. Shut off the consciousness. No more pain. Once I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm not going to feel anything anyway. That's my suicide plan.
I don't know.
Yeah.
When you want to experience death for what it is, rather than just be completely out of your mind on something.
No. Not necessarily. Okay. I don't know.
Like
I'm talking shit, right? Who knows what's going to happen? I might get fucking hit by a car tomorrow. I might get cancer. Exactly. I might get an enlarged heart.
No. That's the thing. When you get cancer, there's a way out. You don't need mushrooms and DMT on top of it because morphium is pretty good.
But I want to feel that feeling. I want to know what that heroin feeling feels like.
Yeah, that's morphium. That's heroin.
Oh, is it?
That's,
okay.
Yeah.
It's an opiate.
You don't get... Yeah. Morphium is probably... Like, they don't give you fentanyl. I don't think so. Probably they give you fentanyl. Then you're gone pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You don't feel it for much longer because it's just going to be good, I guess. Like, and goodbye.
You remember Doug Stanhope's mother's suicide story? She wanted to take a bunch of pills. She had, I think it was morphine she had, right?
I don't know.
Yeah, she took a shit ton of morphine. So Doug Stanhope's mother was in, I think she was in severe pain or something had happened where she had decided today's the day. And basically Stanhope and Bingo went over there and she had 90 pills of morphine. And she took all of them. And they gave them to her. And they were there with her while she did it. And they were just laughing and having a good time. And then she passed away. And that was kind of the story of how it went. There was obviously like a statute of limitations on the whole thing because he went and took her credit card and made a whole bunch of purchases on Sky Magazine. It was in Beer Hall Putsch, if you ever saw that stand-up special. And then after that, I was like, yo, that would be a really great idea if you don't want to feel it and if you don't want to deal with like just laying there and coughing up and being like, and then, right? Like just having an experience where you don't feel anything and you're like, woo!
Yeah. It's the science of dying.
Yeah.
There is a field in medicine that deals with that, and essentially, what is like, the latest is let people die in peace. The way to do this is usually morphine. Yeah.
Okay. So,
And
do you know what
I
they
think
would
you
use?
can make a wish.
Yeah. Do you know what they would use for? So where you are, do they do? What is it called? Where they let you? Where if you decide you don't want to live anymore?
Yes.
What is that called? There's
Assisted suicide.
assisted suicide. Yeah. What is it
Yeah.
that they use for that? Is it also morphine?
I would guess it's a strong opiate, at least. Fentanyl, morphine, something that's
And it just knocks you out, and then you're like, that's it.
you fall asleep and stop breathing.
That's always
That's what you
everybody's
wanna do.
ideal way of dying, right?
Yes.
I would love to die peacefully in my sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's what,
Exactly.
that's
Without pain,
it. Yeah.
right?
I want to
Exactly.
I
And
just
that's
want
what
to
it does.
light my neurons up, and I just want to whatever imagery and whatever that my brain can create with all those fucking drugs in my system, I want to experience that because it does kind of strike a curiosity in you, right? Like, what the fuck is with all these people who do heroin? Like, and they talk about how amazing it is. It's so fucking great, blah, blah, blah. They can't stop doing it. It's so fucking addictive that the first time they do it, they have to go back to it and try it again. I'm so curious because
That's why you get it usually when you're terminally ill, and nobody really prescribes opiates anymore if it's not really serious. And then it's for 2 weeks, and you tell them, come back, and we need to,
yeah.
Well, a lot of people don't do it. Don't do it again after the first time for a long time because
Yeah.
it makes you sick. Usually, the first time you take it.
Yeah, it's the withdrawals I
That too,
hear. Like people go back because they don't want to deal with the withdrawal symptoms.
not even the first time you take opiates, it makes your stomach hurt. It's your digestive system, your central nervous system gets blocked by the opiates. That's why you don't feel pain.
Yeah.
But you also can't digest anymore.
Yeah.
That's also why your heart fails to, beat at a certain dosage. It's blocking your central nervous system. And that's what, the bowel movements that don't happen for 24 hours, stomach cramps, and, on all that, like, ugh.
Sounds
So
horrific.
that's what we were talking about earlier. As soon as you start with opiates, and that's Kurt Cobain's story in a nutshell, you get problems with your stomach. So it's a
it's
vicious
hard for
circle
me to
anyway.
not believe that. Like I know he said that. I know a lot of people would probably think that he used that stomach thing as an excuse, but he had stomach issues before the heroin popped in. He was talking about having stomach issues before he started doing heroin, so I don't really know.
Could have been all sorts of things.
Exactly.
Like, for example, just if you throw up from medication, your what's it called? Esophagus.
Esophagus,
That gets just that, for example, and then you're dealing with that. Get pain medication for that. Get off the pain medication. Take another thing. On and off. Yeah. We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, so that acid reflux thing happens, right? Where like it
Or
feels
that,
like
yeah.
it feels like that's just like one of the examples where it feels like the acid in your stomach is actually coming up your esophagus back upwards a little bit, and you get like burpy, and that's just like sometimes that happens when you eat spicy food. You ever burped after you had something spicy? You're like, oh, it burns. Oh, why? Why is this happening to me?
I'm not gonna read out my favorite Indian place here.
Oh my gosh, fine, don't. So that journal, do you know what journal that
Ganesha.
is, Sean?
Well,
Because
this
there's
is- this is-
several, right?
Hmm.
Well, if you
That
look
says
through it, so
Journals.
each chapter starts with the actual specific journal.
Oh,
So a
okay.
picture of the specific journal.
But it's not all of them, is it?
I think it's bits and pieces from pretty much all of them. Yeah. See, look,
Yeah.
different journal. That's the one around the time of In Utero. Next book, you see. So I think it's mostly the first journal, which is like from before and after sign and Sub Pop, and then yeah.
I feel like what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to maximize that journal, and then we can kind of talk over it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one sec.
Hmm?
So do you want me to just go through it, and if there's anything that catches your eye?
Yeah, if there's anything that you're interested in, read it to us, because I'm not going to be able to really see the words, right? So.
Well, I haven't been through it in a while, so we'll have a look-see.
Have you seen this journal, Zwitchi?
No.
I highly recommend that if you get some time, that you check out the Montage of Heck, because that's what I watched, and they do this really amazing. The editing of that documentary is so fucking good. Like, it's so well made. I was just the way that it was edited was like making me cry. I was like, oh my god, it's so amazing. I wonder how much time this shit took. Dale, count how many times I used the word fuck. Dale was a friend of his, right?
Dale Crover, I think, yeah.
Was that the druggie you were talking about? Or was that no, Melvin's?
That's the drummer from the
Melvins.
Melvins, yeah. So I think that is him. But the thing is, it could have been a different Dale, but it probably is Dale Crover, because he's talking about Jonathan Poneman, who's the guy who owns one of the guys who owns Sub Pop.
Jesus fucking Christ Almighty.
You motherfuckers better still play Vile Vermilion Vacancy.
Yeah, so it is Dale Crover,
Yeah,
because he's asking him to play specific songs and. Yeah. Oh, Bruce Pavitt. So it's Jonathan Palmerman and Bruce Pavitt were the guys who own Sub Pop. And so yeah, it's just talking about radio stations and about the Seattle scene. And our final name is Nirvana.
It's Nirvana, by the way, not Nirvana.
Nirvana.
That beginning of that interview was so funny. He's like, no offense to Canadians or anything, but it's pronounced Nirvana, not Nirvana.
Yeah, and then there's that interview with I think it's with Much Music, and they're like, we spoke to Nirvana a boot, and then they go Nirvana, like straight away. Say it right. So good. Right. So yeah. Yeah, this is just more of the letter to Dale.
Look at that fucking drawing, man. That's crazy.
It's Eddie. Iron Maiden.
Yeah, and he was such a good illustrator, Kurt.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved how they bring those drawings to life in that fucking show, man. Or in that documentary. It was so cool. What does that say over there?
Says the late 1980s. This is a subliminal example of a society that has sucked and fucked itself into rehashing values of greed.
Subliminal in a sense that there are no P-Rock colleges of Michael J. Fox roaming Bruce Springsteen clinging to a missile.
Reaming Bruce Springsteen. See, my hand keeps getting in the way when I read it. That's the problem.
It's all right. Instead, the overall feeling that you produce
paid
way too much for literally nothing, simulating. Oh, I can't read that.
Yeah, I don't know if this line's meant to go into this one.
Yeah, I don't know either. The joke's on you, so kill yourself.
No amount of effort can save you from oblivion. Power Vomit Magazine. No address, no editor, no ad rates.
Look.
Oh my god, that page is the one that I saw them animate. The one on the right-hand side with all the chords.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
No.
Merlin Dietrich.
Soundtrack to HR Puff and Stuff. Featuring Mama Cass and Jack Wild. Don't know if that's just him taking notes.
We are willing to pay for the majority of pressing of 1,000 copies of our LP and all of the recording costs. We basically just want to be on your label. Do you think you could please send us a reply or of fuck off or not interested so we don't have to waste more money sending more tapes? Thanks, Nirvana. That looks like a kid wrote it. His writing is so juvenile.
Yeah.
Really, he's probably just writing so fast because his brain fucking thinks so quickly.
I think he just doesn't really give a fuck.
Yeah, that too.
Didn't spend much time in school, so. Yeah, so I think that's like, you know, he was going around with that attitude, like, we'll pay for like the fucking, you know, printing all the records, and then people fucked him over because he wasn't in a position to say this is what I want and I'm not budging. And then when he was, he didn't know how to do that, so he continued to get fucked over all the time. This is just like, I think this is when he was learning to drive. So he's writing down all the different signs and what it means. And
whoa. Pass within 200 feet of approaching car. I wonder what he spilled on there. Coffee?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Looks like. Whoa.
This is the one when they kicked out one of the drummers. It's like a letter to the drummer. Dave, a band needs to practice.
To Grohl? Was that Dave Grohl he was talking to?
No.
Oh, okay. Different Dave.
In our opinion, at least 5 times a week, if the band ever expects to accomplish anything. So yeah, it's basically just like, you know, a letter basically saying it's kind of over. And I think that was the drummer before Chad Channing, which is the guy who played on Bleach. And
okay.
It's more of the letter, and then.
Oh, this is like so personal. Seeing someone's writing in journal, like, you know, you feel like you're not supposed to read it. Like you're sneaking into your sister's room and stealing her journal and like reading shit you shouldn't be reading.
That's why I always felt kind of bad when I got it. Like
Yeah.
I didn't think it'd have this much stuff. I mean, look, that's from Tracy wrote that. Look. P.S. Lanny, thanks for driving Dave up all the time. I know what an awful drive it is. Shelley and I enjoyed spending time with you while they were practicing. Call us sometime. We can get together and do something. Tracy and Shelley, yeah.
She was quite a wicked, amazing woman. That girl, Tracy. Like even in the interviews now, she seems very like well adjusted, healthy.
She seems,
you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think she probably got a lot of regrets. Like.
Yeah, I'm sure. Because the relationship kind of ended abruptly, because while he was staying with her is when the touring started kicking off, right? And that's when he was into heroin, and she didn't even know. She didn't even know he was doing heroin, and he would complain about his stomach and stuff, and then he would be out of the house a lot, and then he was out more and more, and then eventually they just ended up breaking up. And she was talking about they fought and they had arguments and stuff because he was a janitor at first, and then he stopped making money and contributing, and he was cleaning the house and taking care of the house, and then eventually he kind of stopped because all he did was focus on his art and painting and music and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. This is a recipe. It's a recipe. We should make it.
Yeah, I'm
sometime. Three cups of quick oats, 1 large bowl. In
2 sticks of butter is crazy.
2 sticks of butter, 1/2 cup of milk, 2 cups of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa, quarter tablespoon of salt, vanilla, roll and bowl, 2 minutes. Pour over oats, stir until set. Wax paper.
Is that to make cookies or something?
It must be some kind of like chocolate cake or cookies, yeah.
Cookies. Hey, have either of you guys seen Last Days?
Yep.
So I watched that last night too. Zwitch, have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
So basically what it is, it's supposed to be, it was inspired by Kurt Cobain. I wouldn't necessarily say that it is based on him, but the actor they chose really looks like him, and basically it's meant to illustrate the last few days of Kurt Cobain's life, where he's living in this, what is it, like some sort of castle or something? It's like a weird house in the middle of the forest in Rome, right?
No, that's basically the same. I think it might be the same house, but the inside definitely isn't the same house, but a lot of the outdoor shots are of it's basically a mansion that him and Courtney bought in Seattle.
Oh.
And that's like the big house that they bought that he like hated. He used to like spend most of his time in this little like small room.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he didn't like it was. But no, that was directed by Gus Van Sant, I think. He's the same guy who did Elephant, which is about the Columbine shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And have you seen that? Yeah, it's great. And yeah, it's got like Kim Gordon in from Sonic Youth and all these other people, and I think it's loosely based on him. And Michael Pitt is the guy you're talking about who played Kurt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a very kind of over dramatized version of events. But the thing is, there's the bit where there's those people sleeping in the house, and the people keep finding him, and he's like nodded out against the door, and they just shut the door and leave him. Yeah, like they were like his nanny and a couple of other people who were like one of the nannies that looked after Francis. Well, 2 of them, a guy and a girl. They were these kids that Courtney picked up when they were really young, and she used to like get them drugs, and basically she basically groomed these 2 kids, and like they were like her right hand men, or man and woman, and they were like 5 years younger than all of them, and they would just live in Kurt's house. Like it's such a weird, like when you look into all that shit, it's so fucking weird, and like a lot of those things did happen. Like they would find them passed out. Like the scene where he comes home and he starts whispering to them when they're in bed, like that literally happened the night before he killed himself.
Ugh.
So it is loosely based, but it's quite legit.
You know, that movie was very haunting. Like that kid did a great job, because he was fucked up. He was out of his tree. He would just like be stomping around in the forest in the middle of the night with a shotgun, and sometimes he wouldn't even take the shotgun with him, and he was mumbling to himself, and he was falling all over the place, and he just looked like he was on his way out.
Yeah. Well, apparently, like I mean, not a lot of people like not a lot of people like this, but Kurt was very much for gun rights. when it comes to that, it's very left wing in a lot of the ways, but I think it's quite good film, but it's definitely very
Well, it's definitely all speculation, right?
Yeah, I mean
There was no shotgun at the end of that one either. He didn't. There was no shotgun near him. He was just kind of dead in that room,
yeah, he's dead, and then they do that thing where he like climbs out of his
naked.
body.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some of his cartoon
God,
strips.
he was so fucking good at drawing.
Mr. Mustache. Mushmash. Mustache, right?
Oh yeah.
It's a
Mush
womb
my
broom.
See, he always spelled his name with a D. KURDT.
KURDT. Yeah, I don't know why. I think he was just being. What's
Nirvana is from Olympia, Washington. Oh wow.
This must be like a press. Like a quick bio for press. Chad on drums, yeah.
They usually don't have jobs, so they can tour anytime. Nirvana has never jammed on what? On Gloria, on Louie or Louie Louie?
Yeah, Gloria and Louie Louie are like classic, like, rock and roll, like, numbers, like songs that are like really easy to play. Like Gloria, Louie Louie are like both played with like E and A. As in chords, it's very easy to play. Like most like bar bands will play Louie Louie or Gloria. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and cover it. Yeah.
Nirvana is looking to put their music to vinyl or accepting a loan of about $2,000. Man, that's so crazy how that was such a huge amount of money, and now we're like, $2,000 ain't shit, man.
I love this thing. Chad drums is from an island of rich kids and LSD abusers. Jesse.
Look at him, right? Just write and write and write. So I just want to say that yesterday I pulled out my notebook, my Stranger Things notebook. I have this really cute notebook that I write a lot of thoughts in. And I also ordered a new notebook yesterday because I was like, I think it's time. I think it's time to ramp up the writing game. And I need to find a way to like just make sure I have 2 notebooks on me all the time. I want to do a notebook stream. Would you be willing to do a notebook stream, Sean? I know you have a lot of crazy things, fun things.
Yeah. Well, I can just find ones that I'm okay going through. You know what I mean? I don't want to be like fucking.
I'm gonna let all my emo shit hang out. I don't care. I'm totally cool with it. So, but it's different. I'm not gonna force you to do it. But if you're down, we should definitely do a notebook stream, because it's always interesting to look at people's thoughts from way back in the day and kind of like. Because you laugh at yourself, right? I certainly laugh at myself from things I write like 2-3 weeks ago. I'm like, look at how fucking emo you are. No, I just feel a lot. Is that okay? Is that okay? Can we deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I found some other ones as well that I have to show you. So
Yeah.
yeah, so these are like all the Bleach lyrics. So down. Blue is like I think it's one of their best songs. It's one of the early songs. Mr. Mustache, Floyd the Barber, which is a really strange song. It's like, when you go to those old school like male barbers and they use like hot towel on the face before they shave and all that. It's about that. And then in the lyric, where is it? PP pressed against my lips.
Yeah.
Floyd breathes hard. I hear a zip. PP pressed against my lip. I was shamed. So I don't know if that's a story or of that he heard about somebody. And then Paper Cuts. That's the one I was reading to you before.
Hairspray Queen.
That's a pretty good song. It's not on Bleach though. I don't think. I think it's
honestly. I don't think I've actually listened to Bleach.
Probably haven't. It's good though.
In Utero and Nevermind, obviously the big ones were the ones that I've listened to. But I'm gonna find Bleach and I'm gonna make sure that I listen to it.
Yeah, Negative Creep's probably the best song on that. Maybe Blue though. I don't know.
Negative Creeps.
Songs like Negative Creep. Just on its own.
Creep. Okay.
See, like Mexican seafood, I don't think that's on Bleach either, but that's like there's a lot of crazy songs that came out on. There's an album called Incesticide, which is like a bunch of like B-sides and singles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This what look, they should cancel COBAIN. Look,
The KKK are the only niggers. Wow. Many women rule the world. Abort Christ. So there was
Mate.
something.
Yeah.
There was something in one of the things, in one of the interviews where, you know, he said he didn't, or it was said that he didn't like much of the rock scene because a lot of it was the punk scene, sorry, because it was very sexist. And he didn't like any of that shit. He was really anti that. He was just a sweet, caring person, but he stopped him.
No, he was like a militant feminist.
Yeah.
Like Smells Like Teen Spirit, the title comes from Kathleen Hanna, who was in this band called Riot Girl, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like a militant feminist band. And he hung around with them and he started like getting into all that kind of politics. And yeah, like she sprayed KURDT Smells Like Teen Spirit because I think he was like dating the drummer of the band. And that was like a antiperspirant, as the Americans call it at the time. And he didn't realize, he thought it was like a revolutionary statement and all that cheesy shit, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's where I kind of fall off the mark with KURDT, is all that kind of stuff. It's a bit silly. It's kind of naive in my opinion. But yeah, everything else is just, I mean,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, pen capture.
What's it? Hold on one second. I got a question for Zwitchi. What's your favorite Bleach song, Zwitch? Is he there?
I think he's having a thing.
I am.
Oh, he's having a think.
I'm even thinking it was even on the. I have to look it up. Too long ago. Many fucking years.
20 fucking years.
Yeah, it has been a while, hasn't it?
Uh-huh.
Honestly, I love seeing, like, I love being able to see his actual writing. It just has like a weird haunting feeling to it.
You know, you can buy this for like dirt cheap on Amazon now, because
I
it
feel
came
like
out.
maybe
like,
I should. I'm gonna look at it.
Came
Look
out
for it
like
right now.
2015 or something. It came out.
While you're looking through it, I'm gonna purchase it on Amazon probably. Let's see. Kurt Cobain journal. $36.47.
Is that the hardback though?
No, it's paperback.
Really? It's that expensive? I got
That's
it for
because
like.
it's Canada, mate.
Oh shit! Yeah. I think I got it for like maybe a tenner or something like that.
No, not here. It's gonna be a lot more.
Did you find the track listing Zwitchi, whatever.
Yeah, I
Switch.
am. I'm looking at it right now.
I think I'm gonna buy it anyway, man. I think it's just good to have. Like, I lately obviously have just been really into. I've always been into music artists. There's something about them that's really edgy and like emo, man. I really like that kind of talent and that expression of emotion. And he's one of those people. I wish I could buy like Trent's notebooks, but he obviously doesn't have any.
Look at that.
First of all,
Jesse.
I enjoy your what?
I enjoy your show.
Your what?
Show.
Oh, your show. Okay.
Well, look, Jesse Helms is a dirty homosexual, and the Imperial Wizard of the KKK is a nigger.
Oh my god.
Yeah, like this is the thing. It's like they were not PC. Like they
No,
understood
good.
the fact that, like, he is calling the Imperial Wizard of the KKK a homosexual because he knows it'll piss off the Imperial Wizard of the KKK.
You know
what I'm
what's
saying?
crazy? The hardcover version is $28.80.
Get that. Then
That's
if
what I'm
it's
gonna
cheaper.
get, but it doesn't have that red cover that the notebooks do. It's like it has like Kurt Cobain journals fuck it. I'm gonna buy it. I don't give a fuck. There's one in stock, so
Oh.
if I don't get it now, I'm fucked.
Wait, before you fucking buy it, check it's like the same amount of pages and it's the same shit.
All right.
Because it might like be less or something. You never know.
Okay.
See, this one fucking trigger happy, isn't she?
I am. You're right. Oh my god, you know what's so funny? So the other day I had hopped in the Discord and I was talking to Zwitchi and Kyle because I was like, guys, I think I'm wearing my in-ear monitors wrong. Can you help me? Like the new Sennheisers that I got. And it was just like, what was that acronym that he used? Read the fuck RTFM? Read the fucking manual. So I figured it out. I just had to. Is that a harmonica? That's so cute.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find something I can keep the page down with. It's the only thing around.
That's very cute. So let's see. How many pages? These journal entries by Nirvana frontman Cobain record his thoughts from the late 1980s until his suicide in 1994. Originally contained in more than 20 notebooks. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. 20 spiral-bound journals. I think this is the one. 304 pages.
Let's have a look.
I can't wait. There's only one in stock. I just got to buy it right now.
300. It's got more pages. This has only got 293. So maybe it's got more notes or something. Like maybe it's got like a preface or something like that.
This one is used. $28.80. 97% positive feedback. 100% positive? Let's do this one. Add to cart. No, this is the one I'll buy, bro.
See, look, this is where I learned about Big Black.
Mm-hmm.
This is the very page I learned about Big Black on. Great band.
Okay, so I'm going to buy this. It's happening. I'm buying Kurt Cobain's journals. But how do I just buy this right now? Why is it giving me so much heck? All right. Well, I guess what I'm going to have to do is look at me. I'm making purchases online. Are we all good for time yet, Zwitch? I know it's late for you. Are you doing okay over there?
He's not there.
He's not? He's gone?
I just looked at you were looking down at your phone. I looked up and it's just a chair. Oh, here he is.
Oh, okay. I see. I can't see. Hi.
Hi. Still there. Sorry.
How are you for time? Are you doing okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just looking up. I can't remember any of the songs, to be honest.
That's okay. Look them up.
Like, I can remember some of the songs, but I think I want to listen to the whole album.
Yeah,
I was
do
gonna
it.
say, yeah. Go and listen to it again, yeah. And look, this is where like all the lyrics for Nevermind start. So you got Aneurysm, Sappy. I think Sappy wasn't on the album though. It was just like a single. You got verse, chorus, verse, which is like a B-side. Dive. Actually, no. This must have been. Yeah, this is like after Bleach, but way before Nevermind was recorded. Because Dive was on.
So I'm getting his journal on Tuesday.
Ew. Yeah,
so
I sat
sad.
down and read the whole thing when I got it, but like literally the other day when I showed you, Aimee, like, that was like the first time I opened it.
In a while,
You know,
you mean?
Yeah, it was like for like years.
I like
I
it.
think he drew that because he found somebody who hung himself when he was a kid.
Dude, this guy's life is so fucked, man. Just continuous trauma after trauma after trauma. And like being alive as this guy. But can I just talk about like his voice was the best. Kurt Cobain has just the most amazing voice. Deep with a little bit of rasp and just so good. His voice was so good.
You know what you should watch? You should watch the Rick Beato stuff on Nirvana, where he
I
breaks
will
down
now.
the songs and he breaks down what Kurt did and what he could do just naturally, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like But you know the way I was saying you can't trust what Courtney Love says.
Yeah.
Right. So she met him in like 1991. Right. And she said that when she first met him, she watched him write the song Dumb in about 10-15 minutes. But there's a demo recording of Dumb from the 80s, like way before he even met her.
Yeah.
And then look at this, it says not finished. And then it's Dumb. It's literally the lyrics to Dumb. This is like way before he met Courtney. So it's like anyone who lies about little
But
shit
dude,
like that, it's like
junkies, man. She was a junkie. He was a junkie too.
yeah, I don't trust her.
I don't even totally trust him. Like, as much as
Yeah,
he
I
was
don't.
this amazing artist and like had all these like, it's very easy to get swept away by how talented he was. And I admit that I've definitely been that person who like will get completely distracted by how talented someone is and forget the fact that they're a human being and afford them like afford them leeway where leeway should not be given to anybody because of that talent. But these are junkies. They're just talented junkies because she was talented too. She was in Hole and she was very much in that world. And her father, what did you say? He was a producer or agent or what? Manager. Manager for the Grateful Dead, which is like, that was a huge fucking band, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they were big. They had a huge following.
Yeah. Kill the Rockefellers. Look at him. That's so crazy. Yeah, kill the bankers, bruh. Fuck them.
Yeah, they're
What does it say on the other page? US out of Oman.
with this one.
Oh, what is it?
US
out of Sea.
Oh yeah,
Canada.
the-
Canada.
Canada. Yeah. I thought you said UFC then. I was going to say the UFC's on tonight, so
US.
I want to watch that, by the way. Aimee.
Yeah, that's in Abu Dhabi, not in Oman.
Yeah. Actually, I think the prelims is probably starting now, and I think the main card starts at about 1 in the morning or something. Jorge Masvidal, I want to see him fucking smash Uso.
It's 1:35 already here, so.
Yeah. What are you doing on that fucking phone?
I just ordered some pens. Sorry.
Fucking dickhead, you're on a live stream. You fucking order.
Yeah,
she orders shit. She orders shit in her sleep. She orders shit on stream.
oh my
like,
god,
fucking-
nobody knows about that. That's supposed to be secret. Nobody's
What, you
supposed to know.
All right, you ordered like a ring, which was like, you know what I mean? It's not
I'm
like
wearing
you're
it right
buying, like-
now.
yeah,
super
look, she
cute.
got used out of
Sleep.
it.
I don't know how this happened, but I bought this ring in my sleep.
She also likes to call me on Discord when she's in her sleep for some
Oh
reason.
my god, it's so weird. I'm sorry.
didn't
I
wake
was
me
about
up.
to say that pocket calling gets out of hand, but you know,
Sleep
have to go
calling.
back to it.
Oh my god, Switch. One of these days I'm just gonna pop into the Discord half asleep.
Well, it wouldn't be a novelty
Oh my
for
gosh.
you, maybe, but
Maybe.
where am I going?
Yeah, so I mean,
Yes.
we can do another stream where we go through this like properly if you want. Like I could mark certain things in it. Like I can go through it and mark certain things.
Yeah, I'm gonna get mine on Tuesdays, so I wouldn't mind going through it again for
yeah.
sure, right? So that would be kind of fun. And I think
Ooh.
mine has more. Ooh.
you-
Yeah, that's more
prepared.
great. Well, this is the guitar he designed for Fender. So he basically took a Polaroid of a Jaguar, which is like the guitar I have, and then a Mustang, and basically just stuck them together, and then they made that guitar. You
Did
can buy
they?
it today. Yeah, you can buy it today. So these are the notes. Like this is literally what Fender received.
That's great.
My friend was left-handed and wanted to have this Fender guitar so badly.
And he never got his hands on it.
Nope.
Well, that's the thing about some guitars. It must be horrible for lefties because, like, ergonomically, like you just can't play them because of the way the switches are set out or the way the body's shaped. Like, you just can't do it.
That's why you, even if you're left-handed, learn it just if you were right-handed, like you
Yeah.
do with the violin, and yeah.
Zwitchi, what instruments have you played or do you play or have experience with?
I have played piano.
Okay, are you
Basically,
classically
yeah.
trained or did you teach that teach yourself that?
Then I had to play at school.
Oh, right,
and
you were in a
that's
music school.
Yeah.
Right. I'm so fucking
Horrible.
jealous. I'm so jealous.
So horrible.
What do you mean it's so horrible?
I went to like even at primary school we had there was an extra class that I attended, like, you know, in the afternoon. It wasn't mandatory, but it was like first 3 years. I think it was just, you know, basic musical education and singing songs and stuff like that. But after, I think from third grade on, you could choose to play an instrument
Okay.
and go to the, what's it called, like conservatory or something, where they, you know, there's an official institute that runs that program. And I even waited a year to play piano because there wasn't a space available in a school close by. In fourth grade, I learned piano,
Oh, whoa,
and in
whoa.
fifth grade, I went to that school.
Okay.
So there, it was mandatory to play an instrument anyway. I got into the piano with another student, like one of my classmates, and it was only the instrument lessons was only instrument teacher and 2 students. That teacher just wasn't that. He was pretty old school. Like he had 5 of his own kids that went through that school, and he beat us with the sheet notes and with the books when we didn't play correctly. Like, yeah, I didn't really, you know, that disconnected me from liking that for a couple of years. So I should have practiced, never did. Only connected to it in 8th grade when the leader of the big band and jazz choir and all that of that school, when I got him as a piano teacher. No, he invited me to join the jazz choir. That's when I reconnected, and the year after that I got him as a piano teacher as well. And yeah, then rock piano and Billy Joel and that kind of stuff. So I had to find another connection because Mozart didn't do it for me.
Yeah.
That was spoiled.
I was just gonna say, it sounds like what a crazy thing to say. Mozart didn't do it for me.
Nah.
I love it.
Mozart, Chopin, couldn't connect to them. That was a painful memory.
Yeah. Reward if found, K. Cobain. I'm so excited to get that journal now. God damn it, spending money over here.
And the next time you come prepared and look through the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
The next time
I came totally unprepared.
I mean, that's okay. We just kind of asked you last minute if you wanted to hang out because I heard your crazy story and I was like, it would be really cool. I didn't know you had such a connection to Nirvana or that you were into them. Like, I'm only now starting to do kind of deep dives into artists and that kind of stuff because I'm really starting to get into music. Remember you were making fun of me last time? You're like, oh yeah, why don't you fill a warehouse with equipment you don't know how to use? Because I was talking about getting an M audio keyboard. I was like, I want an M audio keyboard. And you're like, you don't even know how to use what you have now. What a great idea. Why don't you fill a warehouse with things you don't know how to use?
Well,
It was so
that
funny.
wasn't me, but okay.
No, it was you. You and
Hey.
Kyle and me were together. You just made a joke. It was cute.
Okay.
You're right. You are correct. I was getting ahead of myself. See, look at him with his keyboards. Sean makes music and he's actually really good at it. And I'm like, I just felt kind of inspired by him. And I was like, ooh, I want to fucking do it. And I had other reasons too. Like, I can sing well and stuff.
Like one of these there? Like, oh, no. I got the M audio, but that's almost as good.
You hear that?
It's an Alesis. It's not like it's not top notch, but it does the job. You know what I mean? I mostly use it for like making beats with the pads.
Yep.
That's primarily why I got it. And then also, you know, It's got quite a fair scale length on it, so.
Yeah, my MIDI keyboard is very small. I think it's like 29. It's the Akai MPK Mini. And I have it all programmed up, but I find that when I'm in Fruity Loops, I actually just use Fruity Loops. I don't even really use the MIDI except to find notes, because I'll hum the note first and then I'll push it on the keyboard to know which one it is. Like, I'm so noob at it. Like,
She's getting there. She's just.
It's okay.
my issue is I can sing very well and like I'm very good with pitch, but there's no technical experience and there's no, like, the whole reason I was kind of motivated to do it is because I just feel so compelled to express myself musically, like through notes and stuff, and I just want to learn so badly. As just like my own thing.
I've just put my studio camera on while I sort this one out.
Okay, that's fine. So he plays drums and he plays guitars and he can fuck around with the MIDI keyboard and he mixes all his shit and does all this fun, cool shit. And I've always been pretty impressed by like the one-man band. You know, that's why I love Trent Reznor. He does all his own shit. He plays his own instruments. He sings on his own. He mixes everything on his own. It's Deadmau5 too. He does the same thing. He mixes everything on his own. He knows how to play all the instruments. But these two gentlemen in particular are classically trained, both Joel and Trent. So I kind of use them as motivation to kind of, you know, do stuff. And then there's Kurt. He's not classically trained. His uncle taught him to play guitar and shit.
You don't have to be. Yeah. It's not about that. It's like, yeah, you don't have to be a classically trained painter.
But you need to know what notes go well together and stuff, right? But I guess that's also an ear thing, because sometimes things that typically don't sound good together can sound good together if you can make it work. Because that's what like Kurt's uncle said this in the documentary a lot, where Kurt would use these chord progressions that made no sense. Like they did not sound good together, but he made them sound good together. He made it work somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know like anything about theory. I know like the major scale on guitar, and I know how to play chords, and I know how to play in open tunings. But I don't know anything about theory. Like, to me, it's like if you've listened to enough music and you know what sounds good and you know what you like, and if you've got a good enough ear, then you can put it together. I mean, it's that, you know, it's for me, theory comes into practice when you have to speak to other musicians when you're trying to convey an idea, because that's like the language of how it works. Like if I tell somebody who's playing guitar, like that's why I've learned some phrases. Like if I say play it more like staccato, so it's like stabby, you're not giving sustain to the notes. You know, if I say that to somebody who's like classically trained, they're gonna understand what I mean. But if they say, oh, you've got to play like in mixolydian, blah blah blah, like I don't know what the fuck they're talking about, you know. So there's a lot of downfalls to just doing it.
Yeah, that
organically.
That also, I mean, that doesn't really matter in music, I guess, because if you have to communicate in such a way in the first place, you're either in an orchestra and never played together before and it won't work out because of that, or you're professional musicians and you just play the music and it's actually directed, it's actually directing you to play more staccato or something. In the end, you know, if you're discussing with your drummer and say next time more woof, he also knows what you mean, you know.
Yeah.
It's, you know, there's not even, you know, crescendo, whatever, woof, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's not about that. It's more the chemistry and the communication that goes on anyway. If it's that specific language or you have a different language going on, and sometimes, I mean, you've seen Kelsey, for example. He doesn't even turn around to his drummer, and he just, you know, goes into the next song. They played this so many times, and it's the segue, and he changes the rhythm because it's expected by now, and stuff like that. So with that chord progression, I see both ways, because a guitar is made for music by people that thought about the theory in some way or another. It's, the fifth, and it makes sense. So when Kurt wrote music, that's how my friend explained it to me. He wrote music by playing it on the guitar, and just what sounded good to him, he just, used it. He didn't care if it was like in the circle of fifths, somehow some weird connection that jazz musicians came up with
Yeah.
on intention, just to make it really, for theorists, really interesting. But practically, it didn't even, it sounds odd, it sounds weird, it sounds new, but it doesn't make any sense. That's what he did. He played something, it sounded good to him, he made it work. It worked. Even on paper, it shouldn't have. Yeah. And that's always the case. Creativity has to come from that place. I don't care. And that's essentially what I was trying to hint on. You, as an artist, cannot care about, you know, will it be popular? Will people like it?
Yeah.
You never care.
I don't know.
about
I
that.
don't have that idea, like even with the few things that I have kind of just made and played with in Fruity Loops, the thing that's fun about it is whatever it sounds like, it's uniquely me. It doesn't have some weird backbone that I'm trying to work off of. Like, I might have elements of other people's music, because I do agree with Kelsey. We talked about this last time, but ideas are recycled over and over again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you get inspired by music that you're listening to a lot of now. There's just going to be some similarities that you notice. But like the enterprise of trying to create something, which is very difficult, because as soon as you start creating it, you want to change it. You want to improve it in your own way. It's still you. I want to find my thing, what it sounds like for me. I haven't even started vocal processing yet, because I just want to be able to play with the program and kind of make music on its own before I start adding vocals. But then I want to do that too. So whatever it is.
You'll
You'll get
figure
there
it
when you
out.
get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first started, like I don't, I'll see if I can find about this little tiny Tascam 4 track, and I literally used to just like play some chords that I liked, and then just play some lead over it, and like they sounded like shit. Like I told you, I found some of those old demo recordings, and they sound like shit, but it was me figuring it out. And then I didn't really. I remember like, I think actually the first time I recorded vocals was on that 4 track. And I was so scared, and it was just me in the room, and I was like really nervous because I don't like my voice. But just doing it more and more and more, getting more ideas, figuring out how to do it, getting more equipment, because I wanted to record like acoustic instruments, like instruments in a room, whether it's electric guitar or organ or acoustic guitar, drums. So I had to buy like different types of things and learn about microphone placement and all this stuff. But just like the more knowledge you accrue, the more experience you get with recording yourself, it becomes easier and easier. So that's what you need to do. You just need to put the time in.
Yeah.
And I know it's difficult. I know it's difficult for you because 2 jobs and all that shit. So, but and now like think about it. If you do 2 hours, say if you put some time aside, like twice a week, do 2 hours within like a month or so, you know what I mean, you've put quite a bit of time on the board, and like within a year that'll be even more. You just need to keep doing it.
That's why it's nice to have weekends now, right? Because that's what I'll do tonight. Like after we stream, maybe we hang out for a bit. After that, I just want to sit in front of the computer and try and make some music. That's what I want to spend my time doing. Try to not be distracted and do that. My problem is focus too. I have a big issue with focus. And then I'm like, I actually have like 100 pages left of Sapiens. I should really finish that book, because I've been reading that for fucking 2 months now. And it's just, there's so many things I want to do that I have to split up the time between, that I don't dedicate a certain amount of time to get it done. And then I end up just kind of like, fuck.
Well, I mean, you can read at lunchtime, put it that way.
That's what I've been doing. Yeah. I like to know things. I like to read. I like to have, like, I have so many books here that are on my list that I want to touch, like The Better I can't talk. The Better Angels of Our Nature, Steven Pinker. I also got this other great book called A Practical Guide to Emotional Intelligence, which I actually think I might read as a stream or as like a podcast, because it's just useful information. There's nobody for whom that information is not going to have utility. And trust me, all these fucking dumbasses on the internet, you could use a little emotional intelligence. Fags.
Dumbass.
Yeah, you dumbos.
Internet.
Yeah.
Does that
you
shit
know.
still exist?
Some people don't. Some people don't want to learn. You know what I mean?
That's okay. I don't care.
No, what I'm saying is they don't want to learn because it would, it take them out their bubble, and then they might realize, oh, I'm an asshole, or oh, I'm not as smart as I think I am.
It's like how comedians have that thought of like, yo, if I lose weight, will I be as funny? Because fat's part of my thing, right? Like if Bert Kreischer didn't take off his shirt, would anybody even care about him?
He's said that, hasn't he?
Yeah. But he has a good point. Like it really is like a meme, right? It's a wrestling gimmick. The reason that those wrestlers become so popular is because they have catchphrases, the same thing they say over and over again. They hypnotize people. In the same way, Bert Kreischer, I mean, like, I'm not saying he's not funny. I think he's so fun and he's like really enjoyable on podcasts. His stand-up is whatever. But that aspect, first it was the machine story. Tell us the machine story, Bert. Tell us the machine story. I just want to hear the machine story. Like, other people who are myopic and boring and who find one thing to latch onto about a person, they end up boxing creative people up into these little corners because that's all they want is that one thing out of them. And if you give in to that need from the crowd or whatever, and you want to continue to get that validation from them, you are limiting yourself creatively because the people who are listening to you are not creative. That's why they're listening to you to begin with. They can't be funny like you.
That's the Kurt Cobain story.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, did you see? Did you watch the whole of Unplugged, Aimee?
Unplugged. Oh no, I just watched the parts that were in the documentary.
All right. Did you see the bit where they start calling out for songs?
Yeah.
And they're like, Teen Spirit, and it's like, how the fuck's he gonna play Teen Spirit like acoustic? It doesn't make any sense.
No,
and then
yeah.
somebody shouts out on the actual live concert that's out there. Somebody shouts out a song, and he's like, oh, there's somebody shouts In Bloom, and he's like, how the fuck am I gonna play In Bloom on an acoustic guitar? He literally says that to them, and that's what it is. It's those fans who don't get it, who are limiting him. And I think that, I don't know if you heard this, so it's like he wanted to write music that was more like acoustic. Like he said he wanted to be like Johnny Cash, like with his acoustic guitar. Like that's what he wanted to do. And then like the first song they recorded after In Utero was You Know You're Right, and it's like classic Nirvana, loud, quiet, but it's like crazy loud, quiet. So I think he struggled from that as well. Like I think he did say in an interview once he was worried that people were gonna forget about him if he walked away from the music scene. So yeah,
Deep worries. Yeah. But that's connecting to that, exactly, to that initial trauma of, am I forgotten in here?
by his family. Yeah, wanting to be the center of attention.
Exactly.
I wrote down some things that I saw that he wrote in his journal. I don't have anything to say or ask. I just play along. That always got me when I saw that. I was like, oh boy, he had like really violent dreams. And then he wrote this one line that was like, I use bits and pieces of others' personalities as my own. Like, he was so insightful because that's what we all do, isn't it? That's what being friends is. That's what being in an environment with other people is. You do take bits and pieces of other people's personality, and that's who you are. We're all just like combinations of other people's ideas, other people's feelings and thoughts that have been put out in the world. It's very difficult to say. Like, yeah, the combination of all those things may be unique, but really, the characteristics aren't that unique after you see them again and again in a certain archetype or type of person.
Like in music, it's nothing is new there. All the notes are there already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Technically, every song's already been written. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's actually Have you seen those two guys who made like some algorithm where they took like a certain amount of scales, certain amount of chords, and then they wrote like they let the computer just write like hundreds of thousands of songs. So technically, like they have the copyright to melodies that a melody that I could write, or you could write, or Aimee could write. Like that's how crazy. That's how crazy it is. And like they did it to prove a point. Like they're not actually gonna do that. So like guys like that to have, who have that attitude that they're not gonna like use it to take money off people. It's good that they did that rather than some fucking corporation who's gonna take money off artists. It's fucked up, man. Like there was a court hearing recently about some song that sounded similar to somebody else's song, and the court basically argued that the artist owned the chord and the timbre of the song. Like, it's so
That makes
bad
no
now.
sense to me. How can you even do that?
It doesn't. And Adam Neely, I don't know if you watch Adam Neely, but he did a good video on it.
No. So, I see that Zwitch is yawning, and maybe we're petering off of it. So I'm going to end this, and maybe we can all hang out for a bit until whatever, and then we'll figure it out from there. Sound good? It was really good to have you hang out with us, Zwitchy.
Yeah.
Hey,
We'll
thank
come
you
back
for
next
having
week,
me.
and we will do more journal stuff, because I will have a journal, and then we can do it together, and that will be so much fun. Because there's way too much information about that guy to sit here and do it in one, right? There's the biographical aspect, which is all the story part, and then there's the journal, which is an entirely different aspect of him. So,
And then all our opinions.
yeah, and that takes a long time because we like to do
A
that.
bit.
Well, guys, thank you so much.
Always good.
Bye.